Hi everybody, and welcome to my portfolio presentation. My name is Miranda Kleins, and before we get started today, I'd like to just go over some quick housekeeping. So first things first, as many of you are aware, I have lots of fur babies, so 3 cats and 2 dogs, and I just want to apologize in advance if you hear them walking around behind me, meowing, barking, whatever. Have got them downstairs, so hopefully that shouldn't be a problem. The second housekeeping thing is that for those of you who've seen previous portfolio presentations of mine, you're probably wondering, Miranda, where is your little video here? Well, I've decided that today, for the sake of time and needing to edit that video and critique it and all that good jazz, I've decided that I'm just going to do an audio presentation today. So, no video, sorry to disappoint, but thanks for understanding. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in then. So first things first, we were all asked to pick a standard of competency and then, obviously the artifacts to support that. So I chose standard number 2. And standard number 2 really talks about how educators should understand that in order to have a successful early childhood education program, we really need to have a marriage of services. So we need to include the family, those community partners, those community connections to help build up protective factors for our students. And guys, this is a really good idea, not just for kiddos who've experienced trauma, but for all of our students. Those protective factors are so important because we know adversity happens regardless of, family status, regardless of socioeconomic status. So we want to make sure that our kids are ready and able to overcome when adversity strikes. For number 2, there were 3 subsets. So the first is knowing and understanding the value of diversity within our family. So recognizing that everybody brings something a little bit different to the table, that even within families, families with multiple kiddos, those kiddos are bringing different life experiences to class with them. So being mindful of that, recognizing that everybody's going to handle things just a little bit differently, everybody's in a little bit different situation, and that, ultimately these parents, they're the expert on their family, not us. We're the Sherpa on the journey, right? The next subset talks about how we as educators need to be collaborating with our families in building up children's development. This is really important as well because, again, like I just said, parents are going to be the expert on their families. We are just here to help and guide and act as an added support, really, an extra set of hands, an extra set of eyes to really get these kiddos where they need to be. Learning doesn't happen without the family. They're the first and most important teachers, so being respectful of that and understanding that we need to include the family in all learning processes. And the third is recognizing the need for those community resources and getting families connected to them, utilizing them, not just necessarily bringing them into our schools, which, don't get me wrong, totally great. We should be doing that. But making those really good referrals to families. Hey, you're going to call Lucy down at Voluntary Action Center. She's going to be able to hook you up with coats, whatever. Making those good connections to make sure that we are supporting not only children, but their families. Because again, kiddos don't come in a vacuum, right? All right, so let's move on to artifacts. So for artifact number 1, I used our research essay, not to be mistaken with our signature assignment or our signature essay. This was the essay that, we worked on for the past couple of weeks. I want to thank all of you guys for your feedback. It was really great. You helped me really fine-tune this and help me do well on it. So I want to extend my thanks to you. So the reason I chose this essay, well, the first things first is that I had to utilize all of the materials that we got throughout the class, right? So clearly, I would hope that I have mastered this at least somewhat because I was able to utilize a lot of the tools given to us both through our textbooks and through extra readings. The second is that within my essay, I was able to demonstrate an understanding of the important roles that families play in building up a child's resiliency. I talk about, one of the things that I thought was really interesting. That's how I'll phrase this. One of the things I thought was really interesting as I'm writing this essay is that I kept finding myself using the word, it may happen, this might happen. We don't really know, right? Because like I just said in that previous slide, every kid's a little different. They're bringing a little something different to the table. So understanding that role that families are going to play in their child's ability to build resiliency, and B, to foster their natural resiliency, what they already come to the table with. So that was a really interesting part of this essay. I really enjoyed that. The third way is that I identified within this essay some ways that communities can help build up those protective factors in kiddos. And I identified some really key targeted resources, including, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, all that good stuff, things that can get in there and make sure that children feel supported and that they're not isolated. And again, guys, this stuff is just good for all kiddos, regardless if their parents are incarcerated or not. This is just good stuff. So. And then lastly, recognizing that every family is going to be different, even when experiencing similar trauma. So I can't harp on that enough. That is one of the biggest things that I've picked up from this class, is that even within the same family, kiddos are experiencing the trauma of parental separation differently. Oldest might be a little bit more resilient, might roll off his shoulder a little bit more, whereas the youngest might hold on to it. So that was really interesting. For my second artifact, I chose all the supplemental materials that I picked up along the way. So why did I choose this artifact? Well, first of all, I feel like it demonstrates my eagerness to understand this situation to the best of my ability. I will say that this is an area that I have immense privilege in. I don't know anybody personally who has been involved with the criminal justice system. I got my first speeding ticket about a year ago. I think my husband's had one, but that's my entire experience with it. I've never had to go to court outside of some court advocacy with my clients. But long story short, the supplemental materials really helped me to dig deep, really get into the meat and potatoes of this issue. And it gave me some more firsthand accounts so that I could hopefully better empathize with future clients. So one of these materials that I found really interesting was an A&E series called Babies Behind Bars. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I mean, it's from American Entertainment. It is definitely dramatized. There is a lot of extra fluff in there. But at the meat and potatoes of it, it really talked about the importance of those early days with mom in prison, what that looks like, and it was really fascinating. Good stuff there. So I would recommend it. If you're interested. And the last reason I chose this is that I feel like some of these supplemental materials are really approachable and easy to understand. So one of the resources I used in my essay was Sesame Street for Kids, and they talked about, or Sesame Street for Families, I'm sorry. And it was just such a great resource. Guys, if you haven't checked it out, you should go look at it. There is so much there that doesn't just talk about how to deal with a parent who's incarcerated, but, homelessness, food insecurity. It's wonderful. Check it out. And the whole point of this is that all of those resources are easily accessible, something I can hand to families and say, hey, if you need more information, this is a good place you can go. If this might be something your family is going to encounter soon, here's a good place to get started on looking at that. All right. And then my third and final artifact was just a simple conversation. So this one really came out of the woodworks. I was not expecting it. So here I am, 11th hour, because I don't do anything on time. And I'm finishing up my research paper, and I'm at work because my husband's got a friend over. And so I'm like, oh, shoot, I just got to go in the office. I need peace and quiet. So I'm in my office working, finishing the essay. And I come up front to print it out so I can proofread it. And one of my coworkers, who I don't work with very often, she's manning the hotline. And she's a 5th grade teacher, and we know each other a little bit through passing. And so I ask her, hey, Allison, do you mind going ahead and reading this paper and helping me proofread it because I want a good grade? She's like, yeah, sure. So she looks at it. 5-10 minutes later, I come back up and I check in with her. Hey, what do you think of it? What can I change? And she's like, hey, I just really want to talk to you about this section here that talks about the importance of allowing your children to visit with their incarcerated family. So then she proceeds to tell me that her children, her children actually, has a father who's incarcerated. She's been really conflicted about whether or not she should be allowing her kid to have these visits, if it's detrimental for the kiddo. And it spurred this really awesome conversation where we got to talk about that, where we got to explore it. And the reason I chose this encounter as one of my artifacts. It was a good demonstration of my ability to apply my knowledge that I've learned in this class in a thoughtful and meaningful way. It was a good way for me to connect better with that coworker, to hopefully create a space where she didn't feel isolated anymore, because I had no idea, and I've worked with this woman for 3 years. I had no idea she was going through that. So hopefully creating a little bit more connection there, lessening that isolation. And then it was really awesome because I knew how to offer support. I knew what the research said, and I was able to relay that to her to hopefully help her kiddos be more successful. So this is a really cool encounter. Glad it happened. Good third artifact. All right, so let's ask the question then, do these artifacts demonstrate competency for standard number 2? And the answer, in my opinion, is yes. So let's look back at those standards really quick. Let's just double check that we didn't miss anything. So subset number 1, did I know about, understand, and value the diversity of families? I would say so. I recognized throughout this class that incarceration doesn't necessarily discriminate. Everybody is vulnerable to being swallowed up by the mass incarceration, prison industrial complex, all that good jazz. I will say I don't want to, when I make that statement, I don't want to discredit the fact that it is disproportionately affecting communities of color, but I do understand that, the criminal justice system affects everybody, really, So, yes to number 1. Number 2, does this demonstrate that I can collaborate as a partner with my families to help promote children's development? Well, I mean, when we think back to that last artifact, or artifact number 3, the conversation I had with Allison, I would say yes, absolutely. It was a good opportunity for me to share some of my knowledge to help her, hopefully, in her journey, and to build up that rapport. So, yes. And then number 3, am I using or do I have knowledge of how to utilize those community resources? Again, I would say yes. My signature essay really shows that. My research essay, artifact number 1, demonstrates that just because I've got all those resources there. And then artifact number 2 as well, because not only am I okay and, a little decent at finding supplemental material, hopefully I can get that material to my family. So I'm going to say yes. I think I have done all of this. So let's go on then, and let's talk about real world application. What does this mean? So for many of you, you know that I don't have a traditional early childhood role. So I am the manager of the children's program at a domestic violence shelter. And so everything looks just a little bit different for us. We do primarily, we serve children birth up to age 16 through the children's program. However, a vast majority of the kiddos who come to us are between the ages of birth and 6. So that early childhood still applies to me. Anyway, so when I was doing this research, when I was learning about this, it really helped me question some of my own biases and some of my preconceived notions that I had. So I think as I continue to build my program, I'm going to really make sure to account for the different traumatic experiences that every kiddo is going to have. Not that I don't do that now, but specifically the trauma of losing their father. I know that I fall in the trap of wanting to hone in so much on, you witnessed domestic violence, you witnessed abuse, hell, some of the times you've experienced abuse, but I haven't really looked at the fact that losing their dad, that parental separation, that has a big impact on these kiddos. So I think I'd like to make that definitely a bigger portion of my programming. And then that second part there, I think I'd like to continue to work with moms to help them understand that kiddos still need to have their dads in their lives, even if it's not safe for the mom to necessarily be an intimate partner or to be, an active participant in that relationship. Those kids need to still have the ability to write letters, take phone calls, do supervised visitation, whatever, but be able to maintain some form of contact. I think that's something that I've been missing in my programming. So really happy I found that through this class. All right, guys, that's it for me. Here are my references. If you have any questions, y'all know how to email me. Hope y'all have a good rest of the semester, and I will talk to you later. Thank you. Bye.